$1 million idea, Airbud MD. Let's move on to the next story, because the next story is from the Conspiracy Iceberg list, and the next story is something that people have been talking a lot about, requesting a lot about. Most of you guys have never heard of this, and it's a kind of an odd one. Like I said in the promo, if we accept that it's real, I might have seen one of them. So what this is this is something called a solar plexus clown glider. So a solar plexus clown glider is simply a phrase that appeared on the Conspiracy Iceberg list. And because of that, we have to go through a couple different things real quick. The most likely explanation, people watch my videos, and mostly my videos, and they go, "What? You're an idiot. That's totally made up." Listen, I get that. I get that a lot of these phrases are totally made up. I investigate them nonetheless. You know, the most obvious answer is Solar Plexus Clown Gliders is a joke. It was posted on the iceberg list as a dead end. It's a random collection of words. I get that. That doesn't make for an exciting episode or an entertaining episode, because then right there I go, that's it. deadrabbitradio@gmail.com. So we do extrapolate from that, but I fully understand that phrases like golf rumors, the ocean at night, things like that. A-list travel was able to be tracked down, but there's certain phrases that could just be made up. And I'll always address that as that. We will take that as a possibility, and really the most likely possibility. Solar Plexus Clown Gliders, first explanation is it's just a word stew. It means nothing. I've heard that it is a creepypasta from the Usenet days. So it's basically like an old, lost, scary story. This episode I've done probably about 2 or 3 weeks of research on, and I've used all my internet tricks of like isolating time periods and doing all sorts of different definitions for the words and having to break the phrase up. Solar Plexus, Clown Glider, Jester Glider. I've done everything I could, and I was setting parameters for when I could search, and I couldn't find anything from showing a creepypasta written pre-2017, which is where the earliest use of this phrase, Solar Plexus Clown Gliders, is August 19th, 2017. So it's very, very recent. It's the earliest I could find of this. There's a theory that it's an old hacking term. Again, couldn't find anything of it related to that prior to 2017. Now, the two theories that were the most intriguing was one, that it is a phrase that if you speak aloud or meditate on or think about for prolonged periods of time, it causes a mental breakdown. It is basically a tool that can be used to break down a human's mind. I was going that angle. The thing is, like I said, I spent 3 weeks prepping this story, and I have not had a mental breakdown or really any ill effects, and I've been focusing on this story exclusively on my free time. Looking this up, hours and hours and hours into this, and like I said, trying every variation. People have said you have to think about it while you're listening to a certain frequency, but that theory just came out this morning, as I was on the Paranormal board on X. Never heard of the thing about the frequency, so I mean that could be an out, but like I said, I've heavily researched this, and the only things I found about it being a phrase to reprogram your mind was on the 4chan board. So that leaves us with our last and most compelling explanation. A solar plexus clown glider is another term for, and you're going to have, so here's where we get onto the crazy train, guys. Solar Plexus Clown Glider is another name for a interdimensional demon that latches onto your solar plexus like an infection. So after a ton of research on this, and I saw those 5 theories, and I looked for other ones, and really out of those, the one that I was able to find the most supporting quote-unquote evidence for is the interdimensional demon. And they're specifically known as Archons. We'll go with Archons. The only way that I've ever found a connection between the creatures known as the Archons and the term Solar Plexus Clown Gliders is they attach to your solar plexus. And again, guys, we start stretching after that first one. The clown and the jester are loosely tied, very loosely tied. I'm even saying this here, loosely tied to like demons, trickster spirits, things like that. Gliders Couldn't find anything. I tried everything to figure out how these things supposedly move, what type of technology they use. So I tried valiantly to connect all 4 words to this idea of these demons. And I could connect 2 of them, and then the clown was kind of loose in the glider. I wasn't able to find anything. Unless you count the way that they do move as gliding because they slide across the floor. So apparently what these are interdimensional demons that invade your solar plexus. The solar plexus is where supposedly your chakra is that determines things like will. Your will to do things, your personal power. And these demons, supposedly, again, they travel through these dimensions. They have cut themselves off from the divine light, so they can't create. They have no imagination. They are basically in the darkness. And so they attach themselves to living beings to experience light, to experience creation. And when they're attached to your solar plexus specifically, they can get you anywhere, but when they're attached to your solar plexus specifically, it causes you to overly worry and depression and doubt and all these things, and it feeds off that fear. It brings you into their darkness while it's experiencing our light. I'm like, okay, that's an interesting hypothesis that there are these demons out there that exist and they're kind of cut off from what's pure and beautiful in this world, so they have to infect part of that beauty to experience it, and in the end bring you down to their level. I'm reading all this stuff about Archons, and then it says they've already infected the Greys and the Reptilians, and I'm like, we're back to those guys. But they're saying that's why aliens tend to be quite cruel. The experiences that people have of Greys, they're just kind of cold with their medical experiments, and they're kind of just emotionless. It's because their entire race has been infected by these Archons. The theory is that these things are so pervasive they move from reality to reality and planet to planet until they've completely infiltrated an entire species. And it's just these tendrils coming out. They're generally viewed as slugs or snake-like slugs. And once they latch onto you, they're difficult to get off. Faith healers and mediums say that sometimes they can see them and sometimes they've gotten infected with them themselves. And it's a really big problem, and it's a cause of a lot of people's there are people who have depression for known reasons. And then there are people who have depression, they just can't figure out why. And they're saying that the Archons are kind of responsible more for the second type of depression, just kind of that overwhelming depression. And just problems in your life is general. So are those solar plexus clown gliders? Is that why that's on that list? Because it is this alien species that basically has destroyed other alien species. Is it this creature, this demonic entity, this interdimensional creature that is just moving slowly through the universe? And that's why it's so low down on the conspiracy iceberg list. Because to know of it and to be aware of it is, in a sense, depression enough that these things exist and they're just overwhelming. They've already conquered most of our universe, let alone other universes. I think I've seen one. I don't talk a lot about my own experiences on this show. I actually was talking to my 2 friends, Lana and Mitchum, and I said, I've told Lana a lot of stories that have happened to me. And I said, do you think I should talk about my personal experiences on the show? And she goes, no, you'll sound like a crazy person. And that's true. Because some of my experiences are kind of crazy. This one in particular. This episode may run a little bit long, but I think it's kind of important because it heavily relates to this idea of these solar plexus clown gliders, these demons from another dimension. So when I was in college, I had an assignment. I had to sit in a courthouse. I think it wasn't criminal justice. It might have been journalism class. I had to sit in a courthouse and watch a trial and take notes. And I'm sitting in the back because I'm too cool to sit in the front. I'm sitting in the very back, and they have those orange hard plastic chairs because who wants to be comfortable while watching your loved one be tried for murder? I'm sitting in one of those orange plastic chairs, and I remember just kind of had my arm up. It was, just a weekday morning. Had my arm up on the chair. I'm just kind of leaning back like Jason does, because I can't sit like a human. Again, too cool. So I saw something out of the corner of my eye, my right eye. And I'm alone in the back row. It's just me, and I'm sitting right at the aisle, because I always like to be on the aisle in case I got to go to the bathroom. And I'm sitting there, and so I catch something out of the corner of my right eye, and I remember turning to look, and in the chair, maybe 2 or 3 chairs down from me, was a 3-foot long cobra. and it was like coiled at the base, and it was, probably about as high as me. So it was wrapped up. It actually must have been more than, well, no, probably about 3 feet. That doesn't matter, Jason. It was coiled at the bottom, and then like its head was about the height of me. And it made this super weird movement, almost like this hyper animated movement that I don't think a snake could move in real life. Now, obviously, there was no cobra sitting there, and I knew there's no cobra sitting there. I wasn't like, ugh! I just looked over and saw it, and it was such a weird thing. And at the time, I was just like, oh, I must just be tired. I must just be dreaming. And to be fair, that's the most likely explanation. I was super tired. It was early in the morning. I was bored. I always stay up late. I turn, I look, I see something out of the corner of my eye, and then my brain is trying to construct something really quick for me to actually see, because I'm basically in a dream state. I see a cobra. It moves in a weird way, and I don't react to it. I just kind of look at it for a second. And here's, another weird part. It disappeared. Now, when it didn't disappear like it blinked or it faded or it turned to dust, it simply wasn't there. It didn't just go, beep. It's hard to explain, but it didn't disappear. It simply ceased to be there, because there's a difference. It was really weird at the time. And I remember I just kind of turned back to watch the trial. I was like, but yeah, it just simply stopped being there. I got a sore back. I woke up the next morning with a sore back. I remember being a little uncomfortable in that orange chair, and I was like, man, these chairs are really uncomfortable. I woke up the next morning, my back really hurt. I was like, oh, that orange chair really, really hurt. Really hurt the small of my back. Now, at that point, I had been like in 7 car accidents, so I didn't have the best back to begin with. But I was like, that chair just wasn't working for me. So I just had a sore back. I go to my doctor, and I say, hey, I have a sore back. And he's looking at it. I'm like, yeah, I had a hard time sleeping. I think I waited a couple days, but it was just sore. And I go, I'm having this pain in my back. I don't know what to do. And he's like, well, okay, here you go. He prescribed me 120 Vicodin a month for what is now, I know, was minor back pain. And because the back pain didn't cease, it got worse. Maybe after about 5 or 6 months, he upped it to 250 Vicodin a month. So this was back in like 2004, 2005, where the doctors were over-prescribing painkillers because they didn't think there was anything wrong with them. That time period, when I look back at that time period between 2000, it probably would have been around 2004, 2009, it was about 5 years, was some of the darkest times of my life. And trust me, that's a high fucking hurdle. I remember taking those pills, and no matter how many pills I took, I was still in pain. I would just get loopy. And I remember, because that's back when I was doing my music, I came to the point where I could not operate. I could not do anything functional unless I was taking that medication. And since it wasn't helping me physically, it was just making me loopier and loopier and loopier. And I was just like, I had a hard time, working on my next album. I had a hard time hanging out with people. I had to plan everything around my pain. And no matter how much medicine I took, the pain got worse and worse. I was having huge emotional breakdowns. I was having huge problems with I think you guys can tell I'm fairly optimistic. I was having a huge hard time being even optimistic enough to wake up in the morning, to go to work. I was completely just dead. I was walking dead. Now, what happened with the medication was I ended up changing doctors. My new doctor was like, why are you taking 250 pills a month? Your MRI shows that you should have minor pain, if anything. Your pain tolerance is totally screwed up. I'm going to wean you off the pills. You're going to hate me for a year, and then you're going to feel better. And that's what happened, and I feel 100 times better. I still get a sore back from time to time, but not how that was. I remember when I was really, really depressed about my situation, like really depressed, on the brink depressed. And I remember that snake. I don't know why it popped in my mind. But I kind of in my mind started putting it together. I was like, all of this pain started that morning in that chair. Like, I remember that chair being uncomfortable, and it, like, just feeling painful. And I remember thinking, and this is again a weird thought, but I was like, what if somebody left that snake there? What if somebody else? It was so bizarre. I was thinking, what if it was like a curse? What if somebody else had previously been sitting in that row and they had dropped it off or something and had left, whatever that was had left them and came for me and caused me all of that pain for all of that time. Because I had not only the physical pain, but then I had the mental anguish of not being able to do what I wanted to do because I was so cloudy. My thoughts were just, I couldn't really think in that fog. I felt like a different person on that stuff. But yeah, I'm better. I'm far, far better. I'm back to how I was. And I don't know why it would have left me or what I did if it really was something like that. But what if that was one of these Solar Plexus Clown Gliders, this Archons, this parasitic entity that saw me, someone else, it left someone else, and saw me sitting there and attached itself to me and said, I'm going to cause some chaos and I'm going to feed off this man's fear for a while. I don't know. Most likely explanation is I had a pinched nerve and I went to a doctor and he overprescribed medication and it threw off my pain tolerance and throws you down that spiral and all of that stuff. But I still, every once in a while, think of that snake and wonder if it's somewhere else out there. deadrabbitradio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at facebook.com/deadrabbitradio. Our Twitter is going to be @JasonOCarpenter. So everyone have a great weekend. We're going to be coming back up with some new content. October's going to start soon. We're going to have some awesome stuff for you in October. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal conspiracy and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm glad you listened to it today. Have a great one, guys. That was a clip from our daily podcast, Dead Rabbit Radio. Dead Rabbit Radio is available anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime news. If you want to hear the full episode that this clip came from, check the link below. Please like and subscribe. And hit that little bell, too. That does some magical stuff. Thanks, guys.